NieR Automata is the most interesting game I've ever played. Is it a masterpiece? No. Is it fun? Heck yeah. Is the soundtrack good? It's freaking amazing. Does it have some of the most interesting ideas, story elements, and world building I've ever seen in a video game? Absolutely. Does it execute those elements well? Sometimes. This is the sort of game that does a ton of things incredibly well, often in a way that is completely new and unique, but also has a lot of mediocre moments where something weird as crap happens and you're left there just like, huh?
Name's Jackass. Nice to meet ya.
Wait, really? So what is this game anyway? Well, it is an open-world action RPG with a linear progression, multiple endings and storylines, as well as brief stints into fixed shooter and twin-stick shooter segments. Yup, it's pretty wild. There's an enormous amount of genre mixing here that I've never really seen before. The sheer amount of gameplay variety here is enough to get anyone excited, but I don't think many of these gameplay shifts are very clever or even necessary in some cases. Often what it feels like to me is that it's just mixing things up just for the sake of mixing things up, especially the recurring hacking segments, but it's still constantly enjoyable, and much of the focus is more on the absolutely massive sense of scale when you're fighting these monsters, as well as the personal investment you start to feel like you have in these battles. There's a lot of likable characters in this game that are easy to connect with, and after you do so, you really feel like you have something at stake here too. Whether or not the world, atmosphere, story, and all that grabs you will probably determine a lot of how much you enjoy this game. It's hard to deny how unflinchingly weird this game is, and I guess that inevitably creates sort of a hit-or-miss scenario in regard to the player's enjoyment. I think that there's a lot of guts involved in that sort of creative risk, and I give Platinum kudos for that. Personally, this game grabbed me right from the start. I absolutely loved it. The presentation, the feel, the atmosphere, the epicness. I still think that the story ideas, world building, and soundtrack are some of the best and most ambitious I've ever seen in a game. Even when I'm not playing it, I find myself thinking about it, trying to decipher its off-the-walls, post-apocalyptic sci-fi story and setting. Oftentimes what takes place in this game is intentionally cryptic, urging you to think deeply and decipher the events yourself. There's a ton to chew on here for the story lover in all of us. Loads of different endings, characters, storylines, and snippets of history and lore, massive plot twists, tragedies, triumphs, and failures. The perfect complement to such a grandiose story is a stellar soundtrack. NieR delivers on this extraordinarily well, a fully orchestrated score throughout the entire game, with several different intensities for each track depending on what's happening inside the game. It does wonders for the feel of the adventure, and it's easily one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. I bought it pretty much right away and have been listening to it ever since. Despite all these strengths, the presentation of it all isn't always the best. There are a lot of things that might make you wince or roll your eyes depending on your level of comfortability with sort of these anime shenanigans, occasionally bad writing, and some admittedly uncanny facial animations. You know, it's supposed to be a super emotional scene, but you can't help but notice how weird their lips look. Sometimes it's hard to ignore, but thankfully those scenes are far and few between. Some parts of the game aren't very streamlined, and the story isn't always easy to digest. It undoubtedly has its good moments, but it's not short of mediocre and confusing ones either. A lot of this I could say about the gameplay itself, too. The first hour of this game is the most exciting and enticing thing ever. Your entire fleet is destroyed by an unknown enemy, and now it's all up to you to destroy the target and complete the mission by yourself. You blast your way through hordes of enemies, fly straight into the abandoned factory, and we're finally introduced to our protagonist, to-be.
Activating short-range attack gear. Alert. Large enemy group detected.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Now, the gameplay opens up, and you're introduced to the open world action portion of this game. You have a light attack and a heavy attack, a jump and a dodge. Various different combinations of these lead to a vast array of satisfying combos and fast-paced dodge and attack type gameplay. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, you have this little assistant robot guy called your pod. You can lock onto enemies and sort of machine gun them from far away, or do a big laser attack. So there's a lot to do here, and the gameplay is really, really fun. You decimate your way through the factory and are finally greeted by the target that you were tasked with destroying. Oh my gosh, is that it? Oh my gosh, it's huge! Woo! Oh my gosh, the armor's going down! Nice dodge. Ah! Oh my gosh! Whoa! Yeah, that's right. You don't ever mess with me. Towards the end of this intense battle, your new partner, 9S, sacrifices himself to save you from an unexpected razor arm punch. And you both end up using your black boxes to utterly annihilate the impending army of massive robots. But not before uploading your personal data to a new physical copy of yourself in the bunker, a washed out, mesmerizing, and eerie base on the moon. In this point in the game, you learn that the last of humanity had been driven here hundreds of years ago after an alien invasion launched a robot attack on civilization. Ever since, humanity has taken refuge here and developed their own technological marvel, androids, to fight back against the machines. You are one of those androids, Type 2 Model B, part of Project Yorha, for the glory of mankind. You're sent down to the surface by the commander, you discover the resistance camp, and... Wait, this is just a fetch quest? Seriously? This game was so awesome at the beginning, and now I have to trudge through the world to find some random machine parts so this dude can upgrade his leg or something. It's still fun fighting robots on the way and everything, but I just wish it could be as awesome as it was in the beginning throughout the whole game. Alright, I guess. Maybe something exciting will happen later. Oh man, it totally does. Huge boss fights and crazy plot twists and emotional turmoil, unpredictable sequences, and some of the weirdest stuff happens. But so much of it, I feel like, is constantly padded by these boring, pointless hikes and occasional fetch quests throughout the world. I can sometimes appreciate this downtime if there's like a weird story thing to think about along the way, or just like a peaceful, atmospheric intermission from the crazy gameplay. And that there were definitely those moments, and that's where I felt okay with it, but they were so frequent and it just went on so long sometimes, it wasn't always a good thing. It's awesome when I'm exploring a new area for the first time and just, there's nothing crazy happening, but it's just cool to hear the new music and look at the new things and discover things for myself. But when it's my 5th time going through here and the teleport thing has been disabled for some reason and I'm supposed to bring this thingy to the robot guy so we can get this stuff, like, why is there so much of this? This didn't really ruin my experience or anything because, like, the great soundtrack, beautiful areas, and endlessly intriguing story those were definitely enough to keep me engaged and get me through those kind of boring parts. But it was definitely a drag at some points. I remember reading a few reviews and really resonating with this little bullet point of someone's review. The game is twice as long as it should be. Totally agree. There's so many thrilling sequences and amazing plot points. I can't help but wonder if this game would be way better if the open world and fetch quests and running between areas you've already been in 5 times were cut entirely. What if it was just the good stuff? It does seem great, but there is one thing that I can think of that might be like a downside to completely cutting that open world dilly-dallying type of deal. As I was running around in this world, the characters would talk to each other and develop, and I feel like it really gave me enough time to connect with the characters that I was playing and put me in their shoes. If this game was just restricted to the crazy parts, maybe those crazy parts wouldn't have the same impact if we didn't have all this character development and build-up. Maybe I would have the wrong feel about what it would really be like being part of Yorha. Even the characters themselves complain about the insignificance of the tasks they've been ordered to do.
Man, this job can be pretty rough sometimes, huh? Man, the commander sure is a slave driver, huh? If we were human, we probably would have gone shopping and such here, right?
More meaningless conjecture.
You're so serious, 2B. You know that?
It seems like it was all intentional. Sort of like the benefit to the world building is supposed to trump the shallowness of the task that you're doing. I don't think they really 100% succeeded with that intention, but just understanding the possible reasons for it and recognizing the occasional strengths with that structure make me view it in a bit more of a positive light. Maybe just cut half of the dilly-dallying instead, I don't know. I don't mean to say that fetch quests are half of the game, and that's why it's twice too long. It's not that much. The other reason that the game is twice as long as it should be is because you need to play through the entire game again as 9S instead of 2B to get the last third of the story, which honestly was like the best part of it all, it was the climax. I don't really know why they did this. I like that there's multiple endings and storylines, but requiring me to play through the exact same story I just did was a little weird. It might have been okay if it was like a completely different experience, but for the most part, 9S and 2B are next to each other the whole game, and so like 80% of my 9S playthrough was exactly the same, except for the gameplay shifts. 9S only has one attack, his other one does a little hacking thing into the enemy, which is kind of cool at first, but honestly it just got a bit repetitive and I didn't really like it that much. It's like 7 hours of this before you get to the good stuff. Like, why? Why is it like this? There are a few points where 9S and 2B are separated, so you finally get to see what happened on 9S's side, but it wasn't all that interesting, and it doesn't really make up for the rest of it, so that was kind of weird. I wish I could just skip that whole part and go to the last third of the game. I'm sure it was fun for the super fans who would have loved to play through the whole game again already, but for the average player like me, I just wanted the story to progress. I am still making sense of the story and trying to decide if it's this ambitious, deep masterpiece, or if it's just this nonsensical mishmash of post-apocalyptic, emotional robot politics. Bit of both, maybe? Based on some of the ways it presents itself, your initial impression very may well be the latter, but it will likely even out as you get more comfortable with it. It has a lot of fantastic ideas, with a very weird execution and presentation sometimes. A lot of the premise is that the machines that the aliens developed to destroy humanity were actually evolving and developing personalities and emotions, some incredibly quickly, becoming very dangerous threats to the aliens themselves, and of course the humans and the androids. The androids, created by humans to fight the machines, were made in the humans' image, so they felt a personal responsibility and drive to fight for the humans. I'm still not clear on why exactly they were made like this, rather than just, a computer who does everything they say. Maybe they started out like that and eventually evolved into their own being, or maybe it was determined early on that voluntarily fighting with free will rendered better and more significant results than just emotionless computers. Regardless, they definitely have their own personalities and are voluntarily fighting for the humans. However, as the game goes on, you start to find more and more members who have abandoned Yorha. Some you're tasked to hunt down and execute, which is always pretty tough on the characters, and there's others that you just stumble across, and they all never quite tell you why they left.
Why did you betray us?
Command is the one that betrayed you.
You'll find a village of machines who have actually left the fight against the androids and committed themselves to a peaceful, pacifistic life under the instruction of Pascal, a machine with a fully developed personality and philosophy. All of these mechanical characters feel human, don't they? Are they human? What does it really mean to be human? Does it have to be flesh, or can it be mimicking flesh too? Are androids and these developed machines really all that different? Are they actually kind of the same at the core? Is there really a point to all this fighting? These questions and more explored and struggled with in the fantastical story of NieR Automata. Back to you, Jeff. Anyway, there's a ton more of the story I could talk about, but I think I'm going to leave it in this sort of generalized form just to not spoil anything and give you a preview rather than very specific criticisms. Overall, this game is such a mishmash of quality, it's really hard for me to say anything ultimately conclusive about it, but I'm gonna try. If we want to get real conceptual here, there's like, think about all the things that make a game good. There's like 2 categories where this game is like an 11 out of 10, the holy crap award. And then there's like 4 or 5 other categories where it's like a 7 out of 10 sort of thing. Nothing about it is bad per se, just some mediocre parts, like parts of the gameplay feeling flat sometimes, and the presentation and progression being a bit confusing or convoluted or silly sometimes. But almost everything else was so innovative and enticing, it's really hard for me to not love what I experienced. My overall takeaway is definitely positive, but it's also clear to me that there could be a lot to improve on, and this game is probably pretty hard to get into if you're a more casual gamer. But hey, if this game looks cool to you, and you're okay with lots of RPG elements, also on top of lots of action elements, definitely give it a shot. It requires a bit of time to really get into it and love it, but if you can get to that point, you will not regret it. Hey, what's up? Thanks for watching. I think I'm going to start doing more videos like these. This year I've committed to record all my gameplay footage and occasionally write a little review piece thingy for a game that I particularly found interesting. It feels pretty rewarding and fun to get my thoughts out there. I think I'm going to be doing that a lot more this year, so expect to see more videos like this coming your way. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this sort of thing in the comments below. Any questions you got, feel free to shoot me some. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks again for stopping by, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, it's me, Inktivate, the person who clears his throat all the time because he's not sick. That's how it works. Thinking about it, trying to decipher its off the whales. Oh boy.